Watch this tutorial video to build your own bean-filled pool float lounger for extreme relaxation. An interior mesh bag is filled with polystyrene beads which wrap around your body for unmatched comfort and relaxation. The outer bag features a top layer of decorative fabric and a bottom mesh panel, complete with a zipper for easy access to the inner mesh bag. The inner bag itself includes its own zipper, allowing for the addition of bean refills as needed. The polystyrene beans are encased within an interior mesh bag, providing an extra layer of containment. This design dramatically reduces the risk of bean leakage compared to the single-shell mesh floats that are available on the market. 4 baffles are sewn into the inner mesh bag, preventing beans from shifting or migrating to one end when weight is applied. This helps to maintain even distribution of the beans and optimal comfort during use. The breathable mesh fabric in both the inner bag and the outer bag's bottom ensures quick water drainage and evaporation. As a result, the pool lounger can be fully dried and stored in just a few hours. Let's get started and show you how to make your own bean-filled lounger. First, we need to discuss what materials are required. All the materials except for the polystyrene beans are available at Sailrite, and these are the quantities that you will need of each of them. Pick your own outdoor fabric for the decorative part at Sailrite. We're going to be building the top layer of our pool float or lounger with Outdura fabric, which is 100% solution dyed acrylic, which is extremely UV resistant, but it costs a little bit more. So if you'd like to save some money, you may want to choose a polyester fabric like this one, which is called Solarium. And there are all kinds of colors and patterns to choose from, and you will save money, but it won't be as fade resistant as Outdura. It's your choice. Here are just a few of the possible choices of Solarium at the Sailrite website. After all your supplies are on hand, let's start with sewing the zippered mesh panel for the inner bag. This is our Pfeiffertex mesh standard, and I've already straightened this cut edge with a T-square so that we have a straight edge here. We'll measure across the width to 41 inches and mark the material. I'm using a Scriball white pencil for this. If it doesn't mark well, get it wet and it'll mark a lot better. And we're going to mark it in a couple spots because we need a 70-inch length. So I'm at 70 inches here, and I'm just going to scribe a line, and we need the length to be 70 inches. So right here I'm going to come across with my T-square. This Pfeiffertex material can just be cut with regular scissors. It doesn't unravel, and even if it did unravel, our seam's going to be on the inside. So we're going to cut this panel out, and I'll show you what we do for the zipper. So I'm going to cut this strip off that was left over, and I'm going to cut a 6-inch strip of this. So I'm going to use a clear acrylic ruler to mark it at 6 inches because it's 6 inches wide all the way down its length, and we'll cut this out as well. Okay, I'm going to make a mark that's 2.5 inches from this edge. It doesn't matter the side that you put it on because we're going to create a single hem that's 1 1/4. So 1 1/4 times 2 is 2.5. We're going to go all the way down the length with this, marking it well with our Scriball pencil white. Okay, for this larger panel, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the zipper, this is number 5 lens zip, and just put it on the edge, and we're going to mark it right along the edge. And then we're going to use our clear acrylic ruler to strike a line at that distance, and that distance is, for us, 1 1/4 inches all the way down the length. It's the width of our zipper. Mark a line all the way down. Now we're going to be sewing a zipper here and here. This one's going to have a bigger flap than that one. But it's easier to take it to the sewing machine and sew it down like this so that this fabric comes over to the line, and to sew this one down and then put the zipper on. So let's go do that. Okay, so I have a Text 90 thread in it. It's black, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this to the line, and then I'm going to sew. Oh, it doesn't really matter where you sew, but I'll sew just right with this left side of the inside foot up against that edge with a straight stitch that's 6 millimeters in length. Now, oftentimes you see me doing this with double-sided tape. I don't want to use double-sided tape in this because this mesh is so open. So we're going to sew all the way down and just fold this to the line as we go, all the way down. We're doing the same thing to this one, folding to the line. We need to cut the zipper a couple inches longer on each end, and this is a molded tooth number 5 Linzip zipper, continuous length. So we want the hem to be up right now, so the raw edge of the hem is up. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the zipper and we're going to match it up to this edge. So this edge will basically be flush. And we're going to leave it hang off the edge a little bit. Let's take it to the machine and I'll show you what. The hem is up. We're going to match it up to either edge, leaving a little bit off the edge. I'm also going to put my needle in the right position to get closer to the teeth. I'm still going to leave a 6mm stitch length, and I'll do a little bit of reversing here at the end. And so all we have to do here is just match it up and sew along those teeth. Really easy. All the way down. Okay, to sew the other half of the zipper on here, I'm going to go ahead and separate the halves all the way down the length. Then I'm going to set that one aside, and we're going to take this zipper and it's going to go on so that this edge here is the edge we're going to follow. And I'm just going to leave a little bit hang off because we'll cut it so that it's flush when we join it together. So let's take it to the machine. Okay, the hem must be up again, and it is. And then the teeth just go over here, but I'm going to follow this side as my guide. Nice thing about the molded tooth zipper, it doesn't matter what side you sew, just as long as you sew it on the hem side of the fabric. And the needle's going to be in the right position, and we're going to do a little bit of reversing here at the beginning. And we will sew down, matching up this edge as we go. Easy peasy. Okay, so now we need to match up the edge of this one with the edge of that one. And then what I like to do is I like to just cut the teeth so that they're even, so I know basically where the slider needs to be installed. And the slider puller needs to be facing down. And this is a locking slider so that it doesn't open up in the future. And just start the ends together like that. Okay. And what we need to do is we need to pull it all the way down the length of this assembly so that we can secure the other side as well. So I'll just kind of flip it over like this, pull it right off of this. Okay, so once we do that, we come back over here and see the edges are lined up. We open this up and we reinstall the slider in the same way, and then we put it in the middle. Right about here, someplace close to the middle. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure over 1.5 inches here and here. Basically, we can put it on the teeth instead of the fabric. And I'm going to cut out the teeth up to that point. Now don't cut the fabric underneath and leave the teeth together. So just make sure that you're cutting only the teeth. On both sides. So we're going to cut right through the teeth right at that point with scissors. Doesn't have to be exactly over that mark, just close. Okay, and now we're going to take some scrap of the Fifertex, and I cut a 1-inch strip. I'm going to fold that in half and make 2 strips out of it. So this is about, 3.5 inches in length. I'm going to fold this in half, and I'm going to sew it right over the teeth at this juncture, and I'll do the same thing to the other end of this assembly. So I like to have the fold going in towards the panel, and I'll just match it up here, and I'm just going to sew right kind of in the middle of this. Doesn't really matter. And we're going to sew through the teeth, so be careful when you sew over the teeth, and do some reversing. Okay, so I did this a couple times. I'll do the exact same thing on the other end of this, and that's our stop. Our next job is to cut and attach a second mesh panel to complete the inner bag. I placed my excess Vipertex on the table, and then this is the panel we just sewed together, and we're going to lay it on top, and we're going to cut a piece that's exactly the same size as this. I got a pin in my mouth. So I'm going to pin this in place in a couple spots. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but we want it to be as close as possible because we're going to sew around the perimeter. So I'm just going to use this as a template to make it easy to cut. Then I'm going to cut it out with a pair of scissors. I almost made a big boo-boo. This folded part has to be facing down, so outside surfaces will face each other. This is the only one that determines what the outside surface is, so you should see the zipper like this on top. Then we're going to pin around the entire perimeter with pins about every 8 to 12 inches apart. Okay, I put my magnetic guide on at 3/4 of an inch from the needle. The needle's in center position. You can start anywhere, and we're going to sew around the perimeter. Then we're going to turn this right side out and sew around the perimeter again. So it'll be like a pillowcase. So this doesn't have to be totally accurate, and if your edges are off a little bit, it's not going to be a big deal. See, they're off a little bit here, so what? So all the way around. When you get to the beginning of where you started sewing, do some reversing on top of your previous stitches, and we'll show you what's next. We're using the Sayrite Ultrafeed LSZ in a industrial tabletop, but it can be done without it. It just makes the job easier. You'll notice that I put the pins, I've already sewn around the perimeter, but well inside, so I didn't have to worry about running into them with the sewing machine. Remove the pins. Now I'm going to put my finger in here and open up this zipper all the way to the stop and pull the slider all the way back to its beginning position. And then we're going to turn this right side out, and we're going to have to pull the corners and grab the fabric to get it to lay flat. So like this. Let's just show you a corner. So this is one of my corners, and I just want to take my finger inside of it. Someplace the corner is. Where is it? Oh, it's right here. And I want to take that corner and I want to push it out so it's against the seam as much as possible. So we'll do that at all 4 corners. Like that. Okay. So now what we need to do is this is our seam allowance, and we really want it to be on the stitch. So what I do is I open it up, and then I make sure that it's on the stitch. It doesn't have to be perfect because this is an inside core, and then I clip it with these grip clips. Now it's a little bit more difficult when you get to these edges, but if the zipper is big enough that you can definitely do that. So see how it's almost on that stitch? That's perfect enough. And I'll go around with these clips, making sure that it's like that all around the perimeter, putting them everywhere about 12 to 18 inches apart. I'm going to move my magnetic guide so it's right next to the presser foot, which is 3/8 inch from the edge. And then we can start anywhere again. I'll just start right here. And we want to sew around the perimeter, and this will secure the edges very nicely. So I'm going to do a little bit of reversing here. Okay, so all the way around, once you come upon a clip, remove the clip and continue sewing. Easy peasy. Here we're coming to a corner, and it's basically the same thing. Sew until it's about 3/8 of an inch. Bury your needle. Have your needle come up a little bit so you don't get a skip stitch. Lift your foot, pivot, and sew down the next side. Here's our zipper, but our zipper stops here, so we just sew right through that. Next, we'll sew baffles in to keep the beans from shifting when an occupant sits on it. Okay, I've zipped the zipper up so that it's closed. And what I want to do is I want to put baffles in it. And we're going to put 4 baffles in it. So we're going to mark it 3 times, 17 inches, 17 inches, 17 inches. And that doesn't have to be exact, but 17 inches will make it almost exactly where you want it. So we're going to do that at these 3 locations. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a T-square because I want to mark this all the way across. The zipper is zipped up. I'm going to put it across the edge, and we're going to strike a line that we can easily follow when we're sewing on all 3 of these. There's our first baffle, second and third. So at about every 8 inches at the baffle, I'm going to pin the 2 layers together right with a pin in the middle, because we'll just sew right over the pin. Do that for all of them. Okay, we're going to start with this one, and you do have to scrunch up the material to get it underneath the arm of the sewing machine, but it's not too difficult, and we have everything pinned in place. We want to go off of the edge here. We're still doing a 6mm stitch length, and we want to do reversing. Oops, my fabric's in the way. There we go. We want to do some pretty heavy reversing here. We don't want this to come out. Okay, so now we're just going to follow the line, and when we get to the zipper, it doesn't have to be exactly on the line because it's just a baffle. Nobody really sees it. I'm going to try to put this in here to get it started. There we go. I'll show you what we do when we get to the zipper. Okay, we are almost to the zipper, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this large flap, and we are going to sew. We don't want to sew through the teeth here. We want to just sew up to the flange. So I'm in the zipper's flange now, and what I want to do is stop short of the teeth and do heavy reversing right here. Make sure you do not sew through the teeth. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll lift the needle out, lift the foot, push this flange back over, and we'll move to the other side of the zipper. Now the foot will probably get stuck on it a little bit, because it usually does. And we'll sew here, doing heavy reversing, going into the zipper's flange, but not over the teeth. Okay, and then we'll sew all the way to this end. Move this out of the way, yeah. And then we'll do heavy reversing here as well. And that is our baffle. We're going to do that for all of them. But what I'm going to do to get this in the throat of the sewing machine is I'm going to take this to the table and roll this up, scroll it up so I can get to this next one easier. I scroll it up, and to keep it together, I'm just going to use a spring clamp. Let's take it to the machine, and we'll do the same thing to this one, and then we'll do the same thing to that one. So what it should act like is when you unzip this, it goes past each one of these baffles. It'll be a little bit stiff there because there's not much room, but the zipper can open all the way and then zip shut, shutting all the baffles. One zipper, 4 baffles. In this chapter, we'll fill it with the polystyrene beans that are available from locations like Amazon. So this is 1 bag of beans, and actually they're pretty reasonable on Amazon. Serrate doesn't sell these, but you can find multiple brands there. This is 75 liters. We recommend that each lounger take 200 to 250 liters total. Okay, this is the side with the slider all the way open, because when I fill this, I'm going to zip it to here and fill the next baffle. So it's really not that hard if somebody holds it open for you. And what you want to do is distribute your 200 to 250 liters of these bean, what do you call these things? Styrofoam BBs in each of the 4 cavities. That's probably not enough, but we'll put more in there later. And then zip it to the next chamber, and then fill this one in the same manner. We're going to do that until we're satisfied with its fill. Okay, we filled all 4 chambers to approximately the same amount, and this is how puffy ours is. You can decide to do more if you'd like. After all 4 baffles are filled, this is 200 liters. This is the minimum amount that we recommend. 250 would be better. And now that we have the inner bag done, we're going to concentrate on the exterior bag. This exterior bag has the decorative fabric on the front, and on the back side, as seen here, it has the Fibertex mesh. We'll first concentrate on the mesh panel, the cut size, and how to add the zipper. For the mesh fabric, cut 1 piece 65 inches by 47 inches wide. Then for a second piece for the zipper, cut it 47 inches by 8 inches. We'll actually be cutting the decorative fabric later, but its approximate size is 70 inches by 47 inches. Okay, this is the same process as the last time. Here we're going to mark a line 2.5 from the edge where the zipper is going to go, and here we're going to mark a line
that is 1 1/4, and we're going to fold those lines. So basically we're just installing a zipper on the short side just like we did the long side before. 1 1/4 here, 2 1/2 here with a line.
We'll install a zipper in the same way we did with the inner bag.
So we're going to take this to the machine and we're going to pre-stitch this hem in place here just like we did before, and take this to the machine and pre-stitch this, and then we're going to sew the zipper on in exactly the same way that we did before. This will go there and this will go right there. We're not going to show that. We'll show it after it's sewn in place. Okay, the edges are lined up. I'm just going to even up the zipper. We're going to put the slider on all the way till it comes off. Then we're going to reinstall it here and put the slider about here. We did the exact same thing that we did on the bag itself. We sewed this over top of the teeth and we cut away 1 1/2 inches. So now what we need to do is cut it to 72 inches. The table is 72, so this is just perfect.
In this chapter, we're going to sew handles onto the bottom of a bag on 2 ends. This is an optional step.
Okay, so now we're going to make handles out of our scrap fabric, and we want them to be 10 inches long and we want them to be 6 inches wide. So this is 6 inches by 10 inches, and we need to make 2 of them, but I'll just show you how to make one. We're going to cut this out with scissors. This is the Pfeiffer text. It's going to go on the back side of our lounger. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center, and that's pretty easily done by just doing this, and I'll crease it so that it has a little bit of a mark in the center, which you can see right there. Probably put a line in there too, just so that we have a reference for the center. Okay, and then I'm going to fold this to the center and crease it well, or pin it, and then fold this to the center, and then we'll fold it in half, and like this. And we're going to take it to the machine and sew down both long edges. I want this stitch to be pretty close to that edge there, so that's about right. And I'll do some reversing here. And we're just going to sew 6 millimeters, matching up the edges, and then we'll do the same thing on the other long side. I've got to find the center here to put our handle, and so I just fold it in half, and then I'm going to mark it at that center locale. And then I'll open it up. This is the side that has the flap for the zipper, so the zipper is facing up. And that's the center. We want this to be down closer to the zipper than anything, because we're going to have take up fabric here. So I'm going to put it right next to the zipper, which puts it at 3 inches from that edge. And that looks like it's about centered right there. So on the handle, it doesn't matter the side you fold, I'm going to fold back about 1 inch, and I'm going to go ahead and just pin it in place with a straight pin. And then we'll do the same thing over here so that we have a finished edge, and we'll pin it in place here with the pin on the top side. So now when I put it down here at the middle position and I put it right along where that zipper is, I'm going to mark it here on the end, and I'm going to mark it here on the end. And then on the bottom side, I've cut these little patches. They are about 3 inches by 3 inches. The size doesn't really matter. And I'm going to pin these in that locale, just outside the area that I'm going to be sewing. So right here, so I don't have to worry about them moving around. Just one pin. This goes on the underside. This is just going to reinforce the material, and we're going to pin that one in place there as well, where we will not be sewing. Then this is going to go on top. We're going to lay it flat. We're not going to raise it up like this because it isn't necessary. This is a hand grab. And we're going to do the same thing on the other end. I'm going to take it to the machine and we're going to sew like crazy right there. There's our mark. There's our zipper. And we're going to sew it here. And we want to make sure that we sew this well. So, oops, I got to remove that pin. So I'm going to lift my foot with a needle buried and pull that pin out. I'm going to use my edge match pliers to do so, since the spot is so small. Lower the foot, and we can either do like 3 rows of a straight stitch, one here, going back and forth several times, one here and one here, which is probably what I'll do. So there's one, move it over a little bit, and we'll do 2, and then I'll do 3, and we'll do the same thing to the other end. So our patches, we're just going to trim them so they look nice. Don't obviously cut into your stitches. It doesn't need to go all the way out here, and it'll just make it look a lot better. Like that, and do the same thing this one.
Now that our zipper and our handles, which are optional, are installed in the bottom of our exterior bag, it's time to attach the decorative fabric to it.
This is an awesome looking fabric. It's called Outdura. It does have a right side and a wrong side. This is the wrong side. So we have the right side facing up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the mesh that we just fabricated on top with its right side facing down against the other fabrics. So the handle, you can see, is facing down against the outside surface of the fabric underneath. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make sure that everything's flat and straight, and then I'm going to pin it in place just like we did with the mesh fabric, away from where I'm going to be stitching it. So just about every 12 inches or so around the entire perimeter. Okay, so since this is a synthetic fabric, the decorative fabric, which is Outdura, I'm going to use a hot knife just to seal the edge. You could just use scissors, but you will get unraveling. The unraveling will always be on the inside, and we are going to sew it twice, so it probably won't matter, but this is just more professional. So we're going to go all around the perimeter. This is the Sayrite Edge hot knife. We have a corded version and a cordless. This is the cordless. And what I'm using is I'm using a special foot called the Precision Cutting Foot and Blade, and that means it doesn't damage the tabletop surface. So it's really cool. I really highly recommend it. I'm going to put my magnetic guide at 3/4 of an inch, and we're going to sew around the entire perimeter just like we did when we did the mesh inner lining bag. And we'll do a little bit of reversing here, and then we'll just sew around it. Since it's all pinned in place, it'll be pretty easy. Okay, when you're sewing this decorative fabric, just make sure it's close to your edge. If you pinned it a lot, you'll probably be fine. But if you didn't, just make sure it's matched up. When we get to the beginning of where we started sewing, we'll just do some reversing over top of our previous stitches. Pretty easy. So we're going to break open the zipper right by the slider. Just separate it with your finger, and then slide it all the way open to the other end as well. Then we're going to turn it right side out and push out the corners just like we did with the other one. We removed all the pins, obviously. Okay, we're going to stick our hand inside, and we're going to push this so that the stitch is falling pretty much on that, so that the fabric is folding on the first stitch. And then I'm going to put a grip clip on it, and we'll do this all around the perimeter. This takes a little bit of time, but it's probably well worth it. Seth's going to show you a pretty quick way to do this without putting your hand inside.
So what I'm doing is I'm putting my thumb right up to where the stitch is, pinching it, pulling the mesh back, and then pinching both of the pieces together so that they're right on top of each other, right on the stitch. And then I'll just clip it in place.
Nice. Thanks, Seth. I'm going to set my magnetic guide at a 1/2 inch for this, and we're just going to start anywhere. Just start right here, and I'll do a little bit of reversing. And I did change my thread to a navy color, which I think looks better in the front. Black probably would have been fine too, but I just thought it might look better. So we're just going to sew around the perimeter at that 1/2 inch and remove the clips as we go, making sure that it's on that first stitch or as close as possible to that stitch. Let's take a look at the back side before we go on, because this is a stitch that's definitely going to be visible. Looks good. Here you can see I put a tag in when I sewed that stitch. I didn't show that. I probably should have showed it, but that tells the world you did it yourself, if you'd like to put that on.
And in this final chapter, all we have to do is insert the interior bag into the exterior shell.
Okay, so now we take our inner core, and I like to put it with the zipper facing the mesh, and just put it inside. A second helper would probably be advantageous, but we can get this done.
Our float has 200 liters of polystyrene beads.
I'm gonna get a second helper, the cameraman. Once it's inside, just take the zipper and zip it shut. So there it is inserted on the underside. And there's what it looks like on the top side. Now you're always welcome to put more beans in if you'd like, because obviously you can get to both compartments easily with the zipper.
A full materials and tools list can be found in the description below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and also be sure to subscribe and click the bell to be notified of new tutorial videos when they become available. I'm Eric Grant, and from all of us here at Sailrite, thanks for watching.